I'm Dr. Mo, and I would like to first of all thank the Human in the Making Foundation for asking me to speak with you about violence. Violence is one of the major public health and criminal justice challenges and concerns today, globally and internationally. Domestic violence affects. Now I gotta move to the next slide. There you go. Every day in the United States, you get about 3 women who get murdered by their spouse or their boyfriends. These women are sometimes those who are battered or extremely intelligent and college educated sometimes. Sometimes they ask themselves, why this is happening to me? What did I do wrong? And how can I ever recover from what I'm going through? The answer to that question is yes. Regardless of your social-economic status, your cultural background, you could be a victim of a violence. Today, what I'd like to talk to you about is that what is intimate partner violence? My focus would be primarily working on the intimate partner violence because violence is a very broad term. How many kinds are there? How to recognize violence in your life and how to get help and start over again. Domestic violence, as some of you know, is known as spousal abuse, battering, family violence, even dating abuse and intimate, that is now we call it intimate partner violence, the most inclusive term. It means is a pattern of behavior which involves the abuse by one partner against another in an intimate relationship. Such as cohabitation, such as you have a roommate, they may terrorize you as well. You may have it going on a date, or your person could be a family member. So intimate partner violence is very inclusive. Intimate partner violence could be broken down in many different categories. The most common one that you see in the media is where you see a woman battered, the blood shattering and scars. That is only a small percentage of people who are affected that way by violence. Of course, 90% of the time the perpetrator is male. And then the other groups of violent category of violence is called situational couple violence. I don't know any married couple that don't get into conflicts. Many times they negotiate their way out of conflict, but sometimes these conflicts may escalate to a higher level, materialize into aggression, coercion, or violence. Oftentimes, a woman may want to defend herself. That may cause violence. Sometimes she's successful to diffusing the conflict, but sometimes she gets further punished. You're resisting me, I'm going to punish you even more. The separation instigated violence is a category in which you finally come to a conclusion that I am leaving you. I am leaving you, and he gets angry. This is one of the most explosive categories when a person may overreact. Sometimes you've seen on TV men barricade themselves in the home with 2 or 3 children and their wife or family members. Eventually they get shot by the police at the end. So you've seen many of that incidences in the urban environment. Because when you said I'm leaving, he is threatened by your exit. The other category, which is not uncommon, is about 2% of people experience. And if you're Iranian, ever watched the millionaire soap opera they have, you see husband and wife continuously controlling one another by wealth, by power, in using children to constantly struggle. Neither one of them want to leave the marriage or cohabitation, but they're there to drive themselves crazy. I've known people like that. Intimate partner violence may include any of the following physical abuse. Remember, it could be pushing or shoving. It could be slapping, grabbing, or biting. It could be hitting, spanking, kicking, holding you down, twisting your arm, or banging your head against the wall, or the floor, or choking you, or spinning you around, or carrying you out without you wanting to, against your will. They may force sex on you. They may knee you, or they could pull your hair, or punch, or burn you with cigarettes, trying to run you over with their cars. I've seen people want to run over with their girlfriend's car. They actually aggressively become extremely dangerous. Throwing objects at you, punching walls, or breaking windshields, breaking or tearing clothing, or physical objects. Or sometimes they drive recklessly on the way home to just scare the heck out of you. Alcohol and drug oftentimes involved in the violence, but alcohol and drug doesn't make you become violent. You are violent, then you drink. And that makes it easier to go through that process. Blocking exit for you to get in your car, taking your keys away, controlling all your bank cards so you don't have access to any money, just to prevent you from leaving. Unplugging and controlling your cell phone. I've known people deliberately break your cell phone so you have to use theirs. So now you have to, he's there listening to you, who you talking to. Normally you talk to your sister and your mother for an hour. Now he wants you to talk to them for 2 minutes. So therefore you further isolated from people around you. Did the violence cause any body injuries, scars? Did it require you to go to the hospitalization? It is not uncommon for the perpetrator to take the victim to the emergency room and bring them back to the same home environment. Because I'm doing you a favor, honey, I'm sorry I've done that. Was the violence offensive or you were defending yourself? Was major or minor impact on your life? Some people end up having to leave the country. You may have to go back live with your parents. You may have to go and remember something. If you are 35 years old and you got 2 kids, your parents don't want you to move back in with them. I'm not kidding. They don't want you to come back to live with them. Many times, is there a weapon involved? Weapon is important. When the officer comes to investigate a domestic violence case, the first thing they ask you, is there a weapon in the house? Is it locked? Is it safe? Who have access to it? They first thing they ask you, ask someone, your neighbor, to come and take the weapon away from premises, because they don't want any weapon in the domestic violence. They don't take it away from you, but they have someone remove it from premises. So law enforcement are very sharp when they walk into those cases, trying to detect what's going on. Emotional abuse are even worse than physical abuse because there are invisible scars. You cannot see the scar on the face of a child who is suffering from internal pain of shame. Rigid sex rules. These people oftentimes, the way they abuse you, they set exactly rigid rules and they know you're going to violate it. If you're going to violate, then he says, you are not listening to me. You are trying to make me mad. Didn't you know that these were the rules? So these people deliberately set the standards in which you cannot accomplish or reach to. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is a very excellent personality. You probably met people like that. That in 20 minutes they're very happy, and then the 20 other minutes, one comment could turn that person upside down. I have seen rage, fire coming out of the mouth of people if we just want wrong comments happen. The threat of violence, I will kill you, breaking memorable prize items that you have in your home during arguments, threatening divorce, even suicide. Reporting you to immigration is a very common threat among ethnic communities, Vietnamese, Koreans. I work with the Spanish community and Vietnamese, and I see that's very common when you're trapped into this kinds of environment at home. Making it to do illegal things like shoplifting, so therefore you cannot leave him anymore because he has things against you. Intimidation, including her to be afraid of looking at people. He's constantly looking at you to see who you're looking at. And one wrong look, he's going to be angry all the way home that night. Have you met people like that? I've known people like that he is just watching who she's looking at. And that's a very intimidating environment to be when you're with that person. Stalking and checking up on your activities, looking at your, interrogate you, where were you, how come you're late, how come you didn't call me? I have students tell me, I'm a professor, and they tell me that sometimes my boyfriend calls me 20, 30 times a day, or 30, 40 text messages. And if I don't answer one of those messages, he will call another 40 more messages just to get me to answer. I think that's a form of abuse. Other form of verbal abuse could be economic abuse, including having you to stop you from working or have you not going to school. I've had people who had to deal with domestic violence while they're at work. The husband calls at work and disrupts the work environment. He won't let her to go work. She ends up having to stay home to maintain peace. Much better to do that than I go out to work. And make this work environment. People, if you ever work with people who have domestic abuse at home, most common words out of their mouth is, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, because that's how they got used to condition at home. Threatening to use children, which is oftentimes brought into the domestic violence, and threatening them, if you leave me, I'll take the kids from you. Other forms of verbal emotional abuse could be invoking the privilege. I am a man. I have a right to do this. And then they probably act to treat you like you are lower than them, like a servant. Emotional abuse, put down, name calling, belittling you, playing mind games with you. In front of your friends, he ignores you. He doesn't talk to you. In front of friends, he says, not important what she says. And so you as a son kind of go through that emotional turmoil every time you're with him. What was the degree of exposure of violence is extremely important. Were you, for example, what was the intensity of the exposure to violence? Let me give you some examples. Did you remember when you were, what room were you in where we were abused? What was the house smell like? Were kids there watching you? What was the context? I have people tell me that they still remember at old adult age the smell of a unique brand of cigarette, the one that their mother used when they abused them as a child. He told me that I could take that cigarette off 50 other brands because it stuck into my mind, the smell of it. Or mother forcing me to have cod oil. I hate cod oil because how I was forced into. So memories of a room, of location, maybe a car, places that bring those emotional memories back. Did she witness violence? Children who witness violence are more damaged than those who are physically abused. If you watch violence, you feel helpless. You feel more guilty. You feel more angry and rage builds up inside you, nothing you can do. If you're a batterer, you say you imagine a 10 or 12-year-old son watching your mom being battered. You've seen many instances that these teenagers pick up a gun and shoot their father. That has happened many times because of the rage and anger that occurs. So we're very much interested in to know what was the degree of influence that the violence had on you emotionally. Person who abuses you, I want to talk about the person who abuses you. Well, abuses the person. What that person look like? What characteristics they manifest? One of them is jealousy. I want you to know, jealousy doesn't get better as you get older. I've known people at age 85 still fighting every day over infidelity among themselves. 85. So don't think that this is just you're going to grow out of it at age 35. Okay, it's going to be different. No. Jealousy is an emotional feeling that I'm afraid you're going to leave me. So I'm going to keep you as close to myself. It's an emotional need that no one can fulfill. Controlling behavior oftentimes manifests in this. Hey, lady, my wife, you're so fragile. You will crack. You're a little princess. I have to hold your hands. I have to protect you. That's an attitude that you cannot refuse sometimes. Quick involvement on getting you to make a commitment. You got to get married. Let's go to Vegas and get married. He's the kind of guy who may send you 50,000 roses of flowers in a week or two or try to impress you so you make the darn commitment. Your parents going to say, this princess, where did he come from? Don't let him go. And unfortunately, oftentimes these people have unrealistic expectation of you that you're going to meet all their needs. Emotional, physical, social, financial, spiritual need. They also, as I told you, they try to isolate you from resources. And I'll talk a little more detail about that later. Abusive oftentimes is blaming others. The person who's abused always blames others for what's wrong with them. They project their things to the others. Oftentimes, they very hyper-vigilant, very kind of always hurt. As I said, they're on eggshell. You're on eggshell around them. They get easily insulted. Some of these people also show cruelty to animals. They've seen that when a police officer comes for an investigation, that's one other item they look at besides weapon, whether they were also being affected. When you blame others, you're basically telling them, you are making me feel this way. Do you know what I'm saying? This is situational situation that your wife may say something to you that reminds you when you were a child, and you have no idea you feel that way. You start to overreact, not knowing why you're overreacting to this situation. It's just because she reminded you of the circumstance you didn't know. So this emotional thing happened that sometimes is subconsciously happening to the person interaction with you. The most dangerous part is that if you are if you know friends or anyone relative that are in this situation, usually these people engage in what I call it a very dangerous pillow talk. Pillow talk when they are grabbing you and they're in the bed and now they're whispering in your ears, you cannot leave me. If you leave me, I'll kill myself. He's whispering to you now at night in the dark. Nobody can listen to it except you. And here he says, if you leave me, I'll kill you. I will kill the kid. He will threaten you. The pillow talk is one of those dangerous things that happen amongst couple when the person trying to assert coercion and threatening and intimidation. Remember one thing, once you got beaten physically once, he doesn't need to beat you anymore. All he has to do, he needs to threaten you. That has more impact than physically beating you. And that's where it becomes the psychological drama. There is a cycle of drama, cycle of violence. It's a very common cycle of violence. It has three pieces to it. How does it get started? How does it escalate to physical violence or manifest itself to a physical violence? And what's the honeymoon phase? People who abuse you, they're not all bad. Don't get me wrong, folks. People abuse you have many good characteristics. They make money, they pay the bills, they drive, but they also beat on you. So many times women don't want to leave the abusive relationship. People wonder, why aren't you leaving? Well, because it's not all bad, except he abuses. We call it, these are the women who fall in love with men who abuse them, in a sense. Cycle of violence is interesting because once the tension, I can give you millions of reasons of how you can escalate the tension of a violence. Where's my food? Where's my this? How come this is not done? Why are you sitting here? You can escalate for millions of reasons. Depends on condition you are, who you are. What happens is that the escalation would eventually reaches a point of violence. When a person beats you, after that they feel very sorry. Almost like a depression. Forgive me, please forgive me. They're playing games with you. Now they're trying to say how quickly you can get to recover. Sometimes some men buy the woman a nice prized gifts and presents and diamond rings or whatever to just get that woman back. And you think everything is fine, I know this woman who was gardening. She was gardening, she put her hands in the garden, and as a sudden a snake bit her hand. She's screaming, grab the hand, run inside, husband, kids, emergency room, hospital. 4 or 5 hours later, animal control comes. There's no snake. Her hand's all swollen up and red. Okay. Now she goes home, antibiotic, everything is cool. Tomorrow, she wants to go back in the yard. She feels very apprehensive. Oh my God, that snake gonna bite me anytime. When she's in the yard, she's like this. You know, every corner I'm looking for it. What if the kid then left the door open and the snake got into your house? You're gonna be fearful every time you're sitting watching TV. Every little noise. It's over there. Oh, it's over there. Violence is just like having a snake in your house. You have no idea where it's gonna strike. Okay? Never know. It may take 3 months. While you have a party, your parents are there, he becomes explosive, throw all the dishes in the pool. You never know when it's going to happen. But it could happen. And that's the much more difficult psychological adjustment. If it happens every day, then it's easier to, hey, okay, I'm ready. But it's not like that. A snake going to come out and bite you no matter what and when. When this person comes and says, I apologize, and they go back to honeymoon phase, you think my prince is back. My prince is back, he's giving me flowers, he must love me. And so you go back to the same cycle of violence. Oftentimes there are 6 characteristics that you walk away when you're wounded. You feel very shameful. How can I tell my parents? How can I tell my friends? What do they think about me? You have excessive guilt building inside you. Your mind is full of fear. I always say your mind is like a freeway, too much traffic. You can't think straight. Sometimes you can't even solve problems. You don't know who you trust, who to talk to. Sometimes you trust some people too much, too quickly, and that backfires. So you got to be very careful at that stage you are. Sometimes people are very vulnerable at this stage. I've known people, once they come out of one relationship, they're just kind of desperate. They're looking for another prince to come and save. And oftentimes they find similar person or similar kinds of personality that they get attracted to. I call it toxic man syndrome. So I want to share with you 10 characteristics of women who tend to repeat the cycle by telling themselves these words. Carefully listen to them. Only I can tame this bad boy. My love is like no other love. If I just love him enough, he's going to stop. I can fix anything and anybody if I just pour my love to him. Maybe he's the last Prince Charming going to come my way. Maybe never another one will come. I may be lonely for the rest of my life. I feel sorry for him because he told you all of his pain. He's the one who downloaded you all of his insecurities. Now, how can you leave me? You're the only one on earth who understands me. See the emotional gravitation. Not trusting most women who get into these crazy relationships, they know it the first 10 minutes that he's the wrong guy. Have you done fast dating? You know, 10 minutes, sometimes take 3 or 4 minutes to recognize there's something weird going on. Sometimes women don't trust that instinct, that they don't want. They want to believe in that princess, charming coming. I blame Disneyland for this, because they create this illusion in women's mind that there is going to be this other person coming in and save me, okay, on a white horse. And you're staying in an abusive relationship waiting for that day happen. As I said, paralyzed by fear, these people are addicted to high drama. As I said, they beat you, then buy you flowers, and then they take you away, they spend $10,000 on you, then they come and beat you, and the cycle continues. And also, his anger. Some women say, he loves me. The reason he calls me 20,000 times. He loves me when he pays attention and beats me and pushes me. He's having physical contact with me, otherwise. One of the most important part of violence is children. About 70% of domestic violence involves children. I want to talk a little bit about it because that is one of the major concerns. Children are the key factor in a woman's decision to leave an abusive partner. How much should I disclose to my children is one of the first questions women ask. And my answer to that question is nothing. Zero. Children don't have the emotional capacity to sympathize with you. You have cancer, you go see an oncologist. Don't call a plumber. Your children aren't there for you to dump your feelings with them. You need to show extremely confident face, trust that they would know you will save them. Children feel very apprehensive when daddy is beating you. They know you're helpless. Then they say to themselves, can mommy protect me anymore? That fear comes into their mind. So that's why it becomes a very dynamic that you need to better understand. I know I'm not a therapist, I'm not a psychologist, but I'm a practitioner and preventive-oriented person. I maybe have an opinion on this, whether it is true to disclose, but experts say do not disclose it, even in case of emergencies and other situations. Well, I want to talk a little bit about how intimate partner violence affects children. Children who are in the intimate violence environment, 10% have lower IQ. Research has shown that performance in school is 10% lower than others. Have hard time relating and bonding and making friends with others. Oftentimes they're isolated. They have hard time with relationships. They don't know what's the right relationship, what's the wrong relationship. Maybe he beats me, it's okay. At home I get yelled at, so it's okay he yells at me. Sometimes these kids have limited language ability. They have hard time communicating their emotions, their feelings, and put words to it. How do we express our feelings? Through words. Words are the instrument of our communication. If you don't know how to put words to the emotion, therefore you will not be able to communicate. These kids have difficulty communicating. They have frequently mood shifts in a classroom. They overreact to little things. They're hypervigilant. They're looking at the window. They're looking outside. The first 10 minutes these kids are in the classroom, if any of you are teachers, they're not listening to you. They're still worried about what's going to happen to mom at home. They're going to worry about what's home going to look like when I get back home after school. He's not listening to you as a teacher. He's not there. Overreact to little things and appear to zone out, as I said, periodically. And they have also have a hard time with executive function, meaning carry project, taking something from beginning to end. They always need a lot of reassurance. Does trauma impact the schooling? Yes. They have problems self-regulating, self-soothing, calm themselves down. They become easily overwhelmed. They're hypervigilant. They have difficulty trusting, or sometimes they trust some adults too much. Traumatized children, the boys express in a form of aggression. When a son expresses aggression towards the mother would think that this son is turning just like the father. He sees violence, he acts violent. And this further separates the mom from the son in the most critical period that he needs help. So it's very critical to know that violence affects the dynamic of family relationships. Girls may withdraw, they may react, or they don't reflect on how they're thinking. They oftentimes are, oh my God, attitude. School may be the only safe haven for the kids. I want to talk about how you leave. How you get ready to leave abusive relationship. On the average, it takes women 7 attempts to leave a relationship. On the average, woman stays in an abusive relationship for 7 years. And for every year you're in a relationship, it takes you 2 years to recover. So let's assume you were in a relationship for 7 years. You were abused for 14 years to recover. 21 years of your life, adult life, was wiped out because of abuse. Use the math, and you can see it's quite disturbing. Number one you ought to do if anyone you want to help friends or family members is to look up community resources. Orange County is very rich in having a lot of mental health services here. Have several shelters and home for women. And the I will share with you the phone numbers you can call, immediately get to those assistants. So Orange County is very fortunate to live here and have these resources very quickly available to you. You have to find a way to deal with the legal system, because obviously this takes you from domestic emotional dynamic that I described to you to know now the legal system. I hope the foundation would invite another guest in the future to, I don't have expertise in the legal case, but that you talk more specifically about legal aspects of how you maneuver out and how you get the legal advice, because that really, I thought that would be really complement these discussions today. How to secure finances. Finances become one of the major obstacles to leave. Sometimes you need to make sure that all of your funds and money you have, that all mutually you have access to them, because sometimes without you knowing, all of them being cut away from you. Child support, child custody, and child protective services enter your world. If the domestic violence is investigated in your home, immediately the law enforcement on the way home call child protective services if there are children involved. So as such, you have to entirely dealing with another agency with your children that creates entirely dynamic of whether I'm going to lose my kids. Children, and then also how to develop a strategy to restore normalcy in your life. You need to talk to the right people, specifically talk to teachers and talk to clergy. Teachers are important because they're dealing with your child in the school. Number 2, gather intelligence, go underground. Find out to find the right shelter for yourself. Find a spare keys. Make copies of the spare keys. Find out where bus passes are, how you get out. Find transportation means. Practice riding the bus so you know how to get out. Because if you don't know how to get out, you're locked. Rehearse your escape. How am I going to go? Where am I going to go? Make sure he's not following you. You don't want to share your location with anybody when you're leaving. Use your cell phone. Go home, take records of, keep records of everything. Video all the rooms, all the kids' rooms, all your bruises. Take a picture of your passports, every page of a passport, marriage certificate, birth certificate. Because when you get a lawyer, he will ask you for all of that documentation right away. And so you need to take copies of them, have them all in your disposal. License, birth certificate. Take video of your home, as I say, keep accurate diary. Everything happened to you, keep record, because the lawyer would ask you to recall it. And you're going to have to recall experiences 6 months, much fresher in your mind when you go through. Hide your money. Children's blanket. Sew your $100 bill into your blanket. Every stitch you make is 1 centimeter closer to your freedom. So hide money because you need it when you get out. Find one person you can trust, not 20, one. Make paper copy of his telephones and phone numbers, because the cell may be destroyed and you have no access to any phone number. Keep copies of all medication and prescription, because once you're out, you may not have it for that, especially for your kid. Bring some of the kids' items with you. I have had women tell me that before they go to work every day, they get a bag full of children's clothing outside the home so they can take it and store it in their office. So therefore, when they're ready to move, the children have clothing and the toys to play. And lastly, be quick. Don't be quick to share your secrets. It's supposed to say don't. Establish boundaries. The sexiest word in English language is no. And learn to say no. When your mother-in-law wants to come and live with you for 6 months, say no. Be very discreet with online information, because the Facebook could deface you. You have to be very careful with Facebook. Start using your Facebook to your advantage. Mislead your perpetrator. Mislead him. So make sure that Facebook will not come and deface you. And lastly, understand what you're going through. You're going through a very, very difficult time in life. Understand the blueprint of relationship, how you got to where you are now. Reclaim your self-worth, because that's one of the first things shattered in women is self-worth, self-concept, self-efficacy. Take digestible, manageable steps very carefully, like you're trying to prepare a meal. Have your recipe ready. Have the onion already ready. Go grocery shopping. Have a list. Making sure how much you're cooking for what. Cooking is just like escaping. You gotta have one step at a time. You gotta plan it ahead. The meal isn't gonna be ready. You're not gonna be out of relationship instantly. And then I hope that whoever wants to walk away from this relationship walks away, let out all the heavy baggages down, and basically forgive. I always say forgiveness doesn't mean you have to forget the experience. But when you are resentful, it's like you are drinking poison and expecting others to die. That concludes my presentation. I have a hotline that you can call. They should really solve every problem. One telephone number you can reach out. I have additional resources here in Orange County and other places as part of my presentation. Anyway, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity.